Enel is a vertical integrated utility company and is leading at the moment the energy transition in the industry. We changed completely our business model and strategy a few years ago when we started 10 years ago exactly our CSV journey. We jumped into the articles of the Professor Porter and Mark Kramer a few years ago, and we understood that, as said by many other people before me this morning, there was a new way for companies to stay in the market in the long run. And that was exactly the beginning. Enel Green Power at that time was this small renewable company inside the huge Enel group, and we started a shift, and now, renewable are the core strategy, and the energy mix changed completely. So the renewable energy generation overpassed the old fossil and fuel generation. Most of all, I also would like to say hello to my colleagues from South Africa, from Enel Green Power. I think that we are the first renewable operator at the moment in South Africa. So what about the energy transition and the idea of profit with purpose? If we are considering Africa, Africa is a transforming continent which in the last decades has experienced a rapid economic and demographic growth. Despite the unexpected shocks stemming from the COVID-19, the macroeconomic scenarios for Africa in the coming years are likely to remain unchanged due to demographic growth, urbanization, and economies. But access to electricity will be essential to untap Africa's potential in the post-COVID recovery and to enable a variety of long-term sustainable development objectives, from economic productivity and broad social development to job creation, improved health system, education, and poverty reduction. But when we talk and we consider the energy transition, which is a word everyone is using now, we need to think and remind that the energy transition we are facing comes from a paradox. And the paradox is, we know that due to urbanization, industrialization, and digitalization, the energy demand will grow in the next decades and will grow enormously. This is what happens in Africa again. And where is the paradox? We know at the same time that to match and to cope with the climate crisis, we need to lower the emissions. And according to me, Africa fits that paradox perfectly well. Africa today is responsible only for the 3% of global emissions. What can we ask Africa to do more and better? Not lowering the emission for sure, but so not making the same mistakes, let's say the old mature economies and markets did, but rethink and did things in a different way. If you think that today Africa accounts for only 6% of the global energy demand, and little more of the 3% is regards the global electricity demand. Electricity consumption in the continent is low and concentrated in the North region and South Africa, with almost 600 million people still lacking access to electricity at all. But the expected electricity demand is expected to grow faster than anywhere else. So there is no one solution. There are different recipes. For sure, renewable energy sector, for sure, decentralizing the models and the business models. So we need to spread out and find out different solutions depending on where we are. If you think about the most rural and isolated areas in every country of the African continent, you see that we need to take into account also off-grid solution that in many parts of the world can make a huge difference. So if we think about all this, we understand that we need really to focus on different recipes, decentralizing, giving the technology in the hands of people. And again, innovation is key, is central to change the business models and the way we are generating energy. As far as the grid solution, I will focus much more later on because there is a huge debate on generating energy, which is fine, is crucial. But nowadays, we understand that the role of the networks and the infrastructure, you have been discussing about that at the beginning of the session of this morning. But nevertheless, while in the rest of the world, the growth of renewable energy has intensively increased, only 2% of renewable addition occurred in Africa in the last decade, leaving unlocked the enormous potential of the continent in terms of demand, competitiveness, and natural resources. What does it mean? It means that now Africa needs a significant scale up in electricity sector investment in order to guarantee clean, affordable, and secure access to electricity and support continued progress towards a sustainable development. In this regard, for sure, renewable energy technologies represent the most competitive, secure, and sustainable solution to achieve universal electricity access in several African countries. Furthermore, renewable energy could create significant spillover effects across the famous 2030 agenda dimension of sustainability. Again, for every US dollar invested in the transition towards renewable energy, in addition, USD, which is about 0.93 of GDP growth above business as usual, is expected to occur. There is a significant job creation potential from both investing in renewable energy and investing in the local supply agenda associated. Yesterday, I jumped into some figures of Kenya as far as off-grid solution, taking into account only 1 year. And it's amazing, 1 year in Kenya in developing off-grid solution brought 10,000 direct job opportunities, 15,000 informal, and 65,000 productive jobs. So these are figures we need to think and to take into account because they are affecting and changing completely the market. Investments in clean energy create 3.5 times the number of jobs at the same size investment in fossil fuels. To give you a concrete example, in South Africa, thanks to the Renewable Energy Independent Power Product Procurement Program, the REIPP, direct employment rose from 70,800 jobs in 2014 to almost 46,000 by mid-2019, before the COVID. Larger and targeted investment flows in the renewable electricity sector are therefore necessary all across Africa to address the reliability of electricity supply and to make progress on access to power and uptake. But at the same time, a new working model for collaboration should allow both the public and the private sector to play an appropriate role in delivering the new infrastructure while allocating risks and ensuring commercial returns to be generated. This is exactly what the shared value is always talking about, the ecosystem perspective, taking into account at local level what is available to, co-create projects and ideas and develop business model opportunities, taking account the public sector, the private sector, universities, NGOs, new social entrepreneurs, startups, what is available on field to foster a socio-economic development. But let me also introduce something which is, I won't say brand new, but quite relevant in the discussion of the just transition, because this is what we are talking about. We are not talking about an energy transition only. We need and we must do it just, equal, and as fair as possible. And to this extent, we need now not only to consider the generation of energy, but also to take into account the infrastructure, meaning that the grid is the enabler and the facilitator of this just transition. In fact, it is important to underline how the increase of the hosting capacity and the access to electricity in Africa will also require the improvement of the quality of service and the empowerment of the grid infrastructure. Sub-Saharan Africa, limited and aged power infrastructure poses significant challenges to achieve universal access to energy and successfully incorporating increasing amounts of intermittent renewable energies. Although private sector participation now in Africa is growing, in electricity generation most of all, it remains very marginal in transmission and distribution. Therefore, private participation must increase significantly to contribute to the large-scale investments necessary to address the challenges of growing urbanization and the post-COVID recovery in the next decade. A recent study published in 2020, so last year, reports that at global scale, infrastructure has a socioeconomic rate of return around 20%. In other words, $1 of infrastructure investments can raise the GDP by 20 cents in the long run. So if you add this part to the other part of the generation, we are really talking about a lot of new opportunities. Last but not least, let me add the importance and mention the importance of the circular economy. Circular economy is the real potential just to foster also new business model. It is important, is a tool, which is a tool to create shared value. It's an extraordinary opportunity. First of all, because we are not talking about waste only, but it's a way also to reconsider the end of life of materials. That's relevant because if we consider the end of life of material, we can really start with new business models at local level, very effective, that can bring a lot of new job opportunities. I participated to the Africa Shared Value in the last sessions, in the last year. I had the opportunity to listen to amazing good ideas coming from young entrepreneurs there, and they will make the difference. Again, as said at the beginning of this day, a lot can be done if we put together the private and the public sector. They have different view in terms of long run, let's say, and short run. We need to match and find a way to work better together. That's why civil society can act as a bridge among these two partners. And then the academies, the schools, education, and skills, new competencies coming from all these opportunities will reshape the future of Africa that really, in my heart, I really believe will be to go straight to electrification. That's the most important thing to deal with a just energy transition.